Sonic Racing CrossWorlds recently had a closed network test, and me and Luke, the other half of this channel, were lucky enough to be picked to take this thing for a spin. Now, this isn't the sort of video that we'd normally do. It's essentially going to be like a condensed review with a focus on one specific element, but we're both big fans of the Sonic and Sega racing games, and there was one glaring issue that we both noticed with this game that we're really hoping doesn't carry over to the full release, as it's something we believe is mostly responsible for the absolutely generational fumble that was Team Sonic Racing, the last entry in the series prior to CrossWorlds. But before we dive into all that, I want to quickly talk about what we did like in the test drive and some other things I think could use some work as well. So on a fundamental level, I think this is a really fun game. And again, the core controls and feel of the vehicles are something that we have both always loved about this series. It always felt a bit heavier and as a result rougher than Mario Kart, and I mean that in a really good way. It feels like there's a lot of gravity to your interactions, and that feels appropriate for a Sonic spin on the kart racing genre. I'm also happy to say that the speed feels much closer to something like Transformed instead of Team Sonic Racing. I don't think I'm alone in feeling that Team Sonic Racing slowed things down a bit too much, so yeah, pacing is great in this game. It feels fun to play, pretty happy with it in that sense. There's also an extremely robust customization feature here, very similar to Team Sonic Racing's, but it looks to be even more expansive and in-depth. You can mix and match characters with vehicle types of all kinds now, so you can stick Sonic in a power car, Eggman in a speed motor, it will work just fine. The network test doesn't have support for the extreme gear from Riders yet, but I am personally like super stoked for that. I love the Riders games, and more options for playstyles can never be a bad thing in my opinion. But yeah, you can mix and match car parts, add decals, create your own color palettes with a quite frankly shocking amount of sub menus. Like, look at all these color and finish options. It's insane how specific you can be with this. I think the one thing that does slightly concern me about all this is that characters do play a hand in your car's stats, which likely means that there is a optimal character to play as, and that's how you end up with an online mode that's like all Funky Kongs or Bowser bikes. It's already Shallow County in the close network test. Like, I'm kind of sick of looking at the guy. Hopefully that won't be an issue though, because this is a robust looking roster, and the confirmation of a season pass has my hopes up that this game is going to finally capitalize on the benefit of having a fun kart racer engine and release more than one DLC pack per entry. Like, seriously, games like this were made for updates, and I'm hoping that they take the Mario Kart 8 approach to that. I'd love to see ongoing support for this game in the form of new Sonic and non-Sonic guest characters, as well as some fun new tracks to race on. Now I am going to touch on some of the bad things, I'm afraid. Super minor thing first, boats and planes are back from Transformed, which sounds like a positive, and it mostly is, but they have nerfed them slightly. Planes can no longer barrel roll, and drifting seems to be more of a up or down thing rather than left or right. Like, you kind of hold the button and you'll either go up or you'll go down, and then when you let go you'll just kind of boost forward. It still feels okay, actually. I didn't hate this as much as I thought I would when I first felt it, but I do think the lack of being able to roll feels very limiting, and like I have way less options in the air. Boats now can't drift at all, really. You just hold the button down to charge a jump instead. Don't like this. Turning in boats feels pretty impossible at high speeds, and they don't make corners any less tight for these sections, so I'd like to see the transform drift re-implemented if that's possible at this stage in development, but I doubt it, honestly. This isn't a game killer, it's just I'm not a fan. There's this gadget system. These are kind of a mixed bag. They're a fun concept that change up the way you play slightly. There's one that gives you a boost every time you're like hit by another player, or if you hit them. There's ones that give you a priority of certain item types. It's a cool idea. I just do think that maybe this has the potential to get a little messy, not knowing how each opponent will necessarily be affected by any given scenario, but I don't dislike them. The Speedy Air Tricks one was my favourite. I used that a lot. Items are of course back, they're a kart racing staple, and I got a lot of thoughts on items, so I guess I'll just approach this methodically. First off, the item set is once again completely different from the previous 3 entries, and I'm getting just a little tired of that. I think what makes Mario Kart such an accessible game to pick up any entry in the series and play is the fact that 80% of the item pool is the same and will behave how you expect it to in any given game. Green shells always fire, red shells always home in, banana peels always make make you slide out, etc. And when they do add new items, it's normally really obvious what they do. I think like when bob-ombs first got added to the roster, it's pretty clear what a bomb is going to do. Bullet bills, when they first showed up, maybe not super obvious, but pressing it caused an automatic action to happen. So it's not like anything needed explained to you. As soon as it happened, it would just do it. And boos are maybe the most complex item in Mario Kart, which again, I think is made extremely clear what's happening to you when you're hit by a boo. And if you're the one using the boo, you don't really need to know the first time you play, because all it's going to do is disappear and then bring you an item that you probably are familiar with. Items are intuitive in Mario Kart, is my point.
You smart. I appreciate that.
The problem with CrossWorlds items is that not only are they all new again, but they're also the least intuitive items I have seen in this series. And I know this is kind of a nitpick, but I sort of dislike that they're mixing wisps and normal items here. Even if the wisps aren't always overly obvious as to what they do, unless you've played Colors or Lost World, you pretty quickly learn in Team Sonic Racing, because every item was a variation of a wisp, like of that one uniform type of thing, you know? Like you could tell that the missile-shaped one was going to fire missiles, the lightning one was probably going to shoot lightning, the dart-looking one with a reticle is probably going to lock onto people. When you have a mix of wisps from Team Sonic Racing, regular everyday objects from Transformed, and then these new Sonic items like Omochao, it feels way less cohesive and is quite confusing, because I'm no longer sure what game's rule set I'm playing by. Like similarly to Team Sonic Racing's wisps, I think it's mostly obvious at a glance what the All-Stars Racing games items do. Things like traffic cones, fireworks, baseball gloves, etc. They all have kind of established uses in real life that makes what they're going to do in the game pretty easy to read. Like, you know, the cone is going to be designed to stop cars, the fireworks are going to shoot off at someone, baseball gloves catch things, so they're probably going to catch items. Like, logic does most of the work for you. Now, when I see a magnet, I expect it to attract rings, like they do in every Sonic game ever. I don't think, you know, that's obviously going to plant a stationary magnet mine on the ground that drags in other racers. It wasn't super obvious that Omochao was going to start giving me rings, because normally in games, he just gives you hints. And if you don't already know, I would love for you to try and guess what King Boom Boo does at a glance. Does he turn you invisible? Does he steal items? Anything like that? No, he fills the track with a crazy amount of blue fire that targets specifically first place, but does hit other racers as well, obviously. And then there's items like the Tornado, which is, you know, pretty much the same icon as it is in Transformed, but serves a completely different function here, so that's really confusing as well. And whereas previous entries had between 9 or 10 items, this game has 23 so far, and that's just in the network test. I don't know if there's more, but that's way too many, when a lot of them serve the same purpose and exist purely to create a ton of confusing visual noise. Like Laser and Drill both just shoot you forward. Shield and Monster Truck is the same exact thing, except one's smaller. Spike Ball and Magnet are virtually identical, it's just the Spike Ball doesn't pull you in, but who cares? Weights and King Boom Boo both target first place. There's just a ton of really identical functions on non-identical items that had me confused about what did what exactly as the game was going on. And the game gives out so many of these that the pack was always so close together, and it was a little too chaotic for my liking. Kart racers should have some RNG, and getting Mario Karted, so to speak, should absolutely be a part of the experience. But here, it felt like I was getting Mario Karted a couple of times per lap, and it was genuinely difficult to tell what even hit me a lot of the time. As opposed to something like Mario Kart, or any of the other All-Stars games really, especially Transformed, where getting hit normally felt really well telegraphed and usually preventable. Now, regardless of everything I just said, I'm actually not too worried about this. I think this is pretty fixable, and it's something I foresee them getting a lot of feedback on. All they really need to do is tone down the spawn rates of certain items so that the core pool is like 9 to 10 instead of the full 23. Reduce the visual effects on a lot of them, and also just turn down the amount of iron box locations on the tracks. And that's pretty much every issue I have negated with the item system. Fundamentally, it still works, you know? So now on to the entire reason that I decided to write this video, the online mode, the whole point of this network test, right? Like most gamers nowadays, I play with a lot of my friends online.
This game is bad!
meeting up is hard, we've all got jobs and commitments, we live far apart, it's easier to just jump on Discord and play together like that. As such, me and my friends were very excited for Team Sonic Racing when it came out. Big fans of the previous entries, and this one had a team gimmick. Great, we thought. We can go online as a team, rise through the ranking system together. You know, that would feel amazing. All the satisfaction of playing Overwatch competitive without having to, you know, play Overwatch competitive.
So, because I'm being a little aggressive, you're not healing me.
Being a little aggressive.
So you're not healing me. So you're a baby. Or you're a little toddler.
Are you full health? Are you full health?
You can just mute me.
Shut the fuck up.
So imagine our surprise when Sega chose to release a racing title all about playing in a team and decided that the ability to group with friends before heading online wasn't necessary. The only version that let you do this was the PS4 version, and from what I heard, that was mainly because of PlayStation's built-in party system. This is quite possibly the most baffling decision I think a Sonic game has ever made. And I'm including 06 and Shadow the Hedgehog and all the shitty games in that. I can at least see the misguided vision or rushed dev times when I look at a lot of those. But when you're releasing a racing game in 2019 with a central gimmick of teaming up with other racers, the bare minimum I expect is to be able to play with friends and random players at the same time. I do not want to choose between playing with 2 friends and 9 CPUs or no friends at all. They did eventually add this to the game, but by the time they did, anyone who bought it for this reason had refunded it and the online scene was absolutely dead. I know for a fact that they lost at least 3 purchases at launch from just people I know because of this omission. Now, I know this is just a network test, but me and Luke could not group together and play in CrossWorlds, and I will wait for the full game before I make any sweeping statements, but I saw these options on the menu screen and it got me really concerned because these were basically the 2 options you had in Team Sonic Racing at launch: friends only or no friends at all. And for some added context, Internet Dinosaurs Nintendo, the same Nintendo that launched Mario Maker 2, a 2D Mario level creator with 4-player multiplayer, online 4-player multiplayer, for the first time in 2D Mario history, and also omitted the ability to play online with friends at launch. That Nintendo has been letting you do this since Mario Kart Wii. Joining a worldwide game with a friend was easy then, and it is still easy on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Nintendo have been getting this right. Nintendo. Sega, please, I need you to understand. The broad player base will not want to sit and play this game online without friends for more than a few days. The ability to sit in a call and share these insane crazy races with people you care about whilst you shit talk little Timmy, who's always out in front because he's got like 500 hours on this game, is what makes them fun, and it will keep people coming back to play more, especially if there's a ranking system. Oh my god, I'm loving the way I get to see that little number go up when I win in CrossWorlds. I love that other players can see my rank. It's a lot of incentive to keep racing, but it means absolutely nothing if Luke can't play with me. Once Team Sonic Racing got its online mode working properly with the ability to play with friends, we did manage to get a few races in with some other human players before it died completely, and we had so much fun with it, which is what made me so sad for that game, and why I really hope they've learned their lesson from that launch. They're clearly pouring a lot into this one. It's an ambitious gimmick, the roster is huge, the customization and vehicle variety is insane, there's post-launch content plans. I just would hate to see it all come undone, because the only way to experience any of it in a way that isn't with a ton of CPUs is ironically alone. And look, there are some signs that point to this actually not being the case. The menu lobby has a pretty easy to overlook feature that lets you select your player and view your stats. Wins, most played characters, things like that. This option is available before you click on World Match or Friend Match, and the space below these options definitely looks like it could fit a couple of extra cars on it, akin to a Fortnite lobby. And so my hope is that you'll be able to group with friends and sit on this screen before choosing either worldwide or private games. Because honestly, why would the ability to select a player even be a thing on this screen if you're the only one on it? Maybe that's not the case, maybe this is all copium. I mean, you would think that they would would want to test the ability to group up with friends in a network test if it was a thing. But I'm going to choose to believe that it is coming and that lobby screen is real, because I sincerely want this game to do well and have an active player base. It's a ton of fun, and on a purely mechanical level, probably my favorite kart racing series out there, so here's hoping. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Like I said, this was kind of different for us. We don't normally do these kind of thoughts on a single game type videos, but if you enjoyed it, then let us know. We'd be down to do more of these on games that we feel we have something to talk about. And oh my god, thank you once again for 10,000 subscribers. We are seriously floored by the support this channel has gotten, and we have a pretty exciting video planned for the occasion. It was going to be the next one that we released, but then the network test happened, so what are you going to do? Anyway, thank you again. See you soon.